Hey everyone, Suro and Disney here, and I'm first off going to apologize because it's so late. It's a little bit after 10 p.m., and I know what you're asking yourself, Owen, where's Versus? And my response is, well, AJ wasn't feeling very well yesterday, so we weren't able to film Versus. Actually, Versus will be out in the next couple of days. And we're also going to be talking about all the guilds. We will, as of Tuesday, have the Producers Guild, the Writers Guild, and Tuesday will give us our Directors Guild nominations. So they're all going to be in one big video talking about the guilds in the next couple of days. Of course, we also have our video talking about our Critics' Choice predictions. That's coming up this coming Thursday. And of course, our first award ceremony of this year is going to be this Sunday at the Golden Globes, which throws us off completely. And of course, another thing about that is the BAFTA nominations will be coming on January 8th. So, big packed week here on Pop, and don't worry, I'll make it up to you guys. I always do, don't I? So, I am very interested in this fact. Well, first off, number one, we're 8 subscribers away from 300. We're over 22,000 views in over a year, so thank you all for that one. Now, November 2nd was actually where I shot my final thoughts on Halloween Horror Nights 23. And I wasn't planning on doing any more speculation until probably at least February, if I had to guess. That was going to be my original idea. Now, of course, on the 10th, I posted my audio only of this year's Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. And I found a video that was on my tablet, and I reposted that on the day after Christmas this year. So those don't really count. But it's January 5th, and you know what? We're actually going to talk Halloween Horror Nights. And you're probably wondering to yourself, Owen, why are we talking Halloween Horror Nights so early? And my response is 2 words: Mike Aiello. And for those of you that are not in the know, Mike Aiello, of course, is one of the heads of Universal Orlando's Arts and Design. And he's also spearheading the official Halloween Horror Nights Orlando Twitter feed, which is at Horror Nights ORL. All one word. So, he posted something earlier tonight, about 3 hours ago, mind you, and this has basically got my head spinning, and it started a whirlwind with the entire HHN fan community when he posted a Twitter picture of a cover sheet for what will become the first official maze of Halloween Horror Nights 24. Now, this is basically just a white cover sheet with the Universal Orlando Halloween Horror Nights logo on the top. On the bottom it says working draft, and there's something that's blurred out, specifically, of course. And it is allowing for a lot of speculation of what this may be. There's actually somebody that posted a joke saying it was another Walking Dead house. But the funny thing about that is Mike Aiello went on to say that this is an original maze. It's a completely original maze. I will go with what he said to @MoreFanScout on Twitter. He basically said, this is an original and it is not a sequel to anything. All new. Which means we're having at least one original concept house at Halloween Horror Nights 24, if not more. Now, of course, our original concept house for Halloween Horror Nights 23 was Afterlife Death's Vengeance, which some people liked, some people didn't like. So that would be our concept. And of course, we have a brand new property to talk about, and that is the Urban Legends brand. But I'll get to that a little bit later. So, this is our first piece of concrete information. This also allows me to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to talk about some speculation, I'm going to talk about some wishful thinking, and I'm also going to talk about where I think some things may go. Now, there's 3 things that have been thrown down the pipe right now. 3 big rumors. Numero uno. The first rumor is the fact that during Grinchmas, it was revealed a rumor is now circulating the internet that the gentleman who is currently or recently stopped playing the Grinch at Grinchmas at Islands of Adventure, or technically it's on Universal Studios Florida soundstage, but still, who's playing the Grinch currently signed a contract for Halloween Horror Nights 24 to play Jack the Clown, which means there's speculation Jack the Clown may be returning in some form, one way or another, to Halloween Horror Nights 24. Now, of course, this is definitely completely backed up by the fact that the Uni-Mini, both pin and the regular Uni-Mini of Jack the Clown, sold out in so quick fashion last year. I'm actually lucky I have both of them thanks to eBay. I'll show it to you guys in another video. I don't have time to do it now. But I will say that furthered speculation Jack the Clown would be involved. This on top of the fact that in the finale room of Cabin in the Woods, you saw both Jack the Clown and the Caretaker involved, which fuels fire for the fact that Jack may be back. Finally, the original icon of Halloween Horror Nights may finally be making his long-awaited return in 2014. Now, there's also some speculation that's out on the pike right now that 2015 Halloween Horror Nights 25 may be an anniversary year. And if it's an anniversary year, we may not only have more houses than ever before, but we also may see the return of some of the more iconic, pun intended, stars of Halloween Horror Nights past, and maybe even finally bring to the front some icons that just didn't make it for whatever reason. So maybe we might be seeing, who knows, we might be seeing Cindy Kane, potentially. We could possibly be seeing Chance, finally. We could see Eddie, finally, in perfect form, not just there. Obviously, there's a lot of things we could possibly be seeing. Now, again, that's just speculation. It's all it is. There's nothing behind it. I'm just guessing 2015 Halloween Horror Nights 25 is going to be an anniversary year. This allows me to believe that every single house will be from a previous year. So, I would say my speculation for 2015 is going to be Halloween Horror Nights is going to be a greatest hits year. Haven't done that in quite a while. And I think that may occur, along with a lot more houses than ever before. Now, that was the first piece of information that everyone found out, and everybody was all giddy about it, obviously. The second piece of information is American Horror Story may finally be coming to Halloween Horror Nights. Obviously, it was supposed to come for this year's Halloween Horror Nights, or should I say, last year's Halloween Horror Nights. It's officially January. Halloween Horror Nights 23 was supposed to have American Horror Story, and something happened with FX and it fell through. So, it allows me to believe that there's going to be American Horror Story brought to Halloween Horror Nights 24. Now, you ask yourself, what are they going to do? There's 3 seasons of American Horror Story, right? Now, I've never watched an episode of my life, so I'm just going to base it on what I've been reading. So the first season would be called Murder House, way too much like a normal haunted house. Obviously, there's ways you can do it, but I have another plan for a traditional haunted house later this year. Now, maybe Asylum, potentially. They've already done this tease before. It could work. But my prediction is they're going to go with Coven. Why? Because Deathwater Bayou at Hallow Scream was oh so successful last year. I think that Universal is going to take that concept, they're going to run with it, and they're going to improve on it and one-up Busch Gardens. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what's going to happen. So if I call American Horror Story this year, it's going to be probably Coven. Or maybe, if they want to, they can do a mixture of all 3 seasons if they want to throw it into one year. It's possible. Now, another thing is potentially the return of The Walking Dead. Now, I said on this video last year when I was talking about speculation, right at the very beginning of the event, that I thought that Walking Dead will return for the final year this year, this time, someplace it's never been before, and that's a soundstage. We had Walking Dead in Disaster Queue. We had Walking Dead last year in the Parade Building. I think this year it gets a soundstage. And that's the way to do it. That's the way to go out on top. I think it makes perfect sense to me. Now, that's just speculation. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I don't know if there's going to be scare zones, street experiences. Not sure about that. I haven't really fleshed that idea out. This is just January speculation. So I'm trying to get these videos out before everybody under the sun gets out these speculation videos. Why? Because I like to be different. So let's talk about a couple of things that maybe or maybe not be coming. Now, John Murdy, I know this doesn't really have anything to do with Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando, or does it? Because John Murdy posted something rather interesting. I have to get to it here. It's actually further down the list. So, there is a list right now of 32 items that are on the list for Halloween Horror Nights 24 in Hollywood. They're listing 10 2014 films, 4 television series, 8 older films, 4 video games, 3 musical artists, 3 genre personalities, and it says what will make the short list. And Hollywood, what will come back? Because obviously something's got to come back, right? So, here's what I'm thinking at this point. I'm going to say this right now before I get started with anything. I say Hollywood gets Cabin in the Woods and An American Werewolf in London this year. I think it makes total sense. I think it's the right decision. I know that Hollywood really wanted Cabin and Werewolf, and I think they're going to get it in 2014. Now, in return, I don't think this is a very big return. I think it's unfair. It's kind of unbalanced. Hollywood gives us Insidious this year. Obviously, I'm not a fan of the first movie. I like the second one. I think what Orlando can do is combine the two and make an original story. We can go more into the further, kind of like they did with Hollywood's Maze, but make it a lot better. Because obviously we changed the La Llorona the different way when we got to the second half of the Maze when we had it last year. So, another property I think potentially could be coming over would be the El Kuki, or Kukai, the Boogeyman house, which would then be rebranded from the Urban Legends brand, which Universal is now going to be pushing every year. I think that it could end up happening. I think the Boogeyman will be the house we get a version of it, a different version of it, completely different from the Hollywood house, and completely different from the WWE wrestler of the same name that ate the worms and wore the clock around his neck, kind of like Flavor Flav. Now, interesting idea here is also the fact that I think there's a possibility, not a guarantee, there's a possibility of Black Sabbath 13 coming to be our 3D maze this year. Now, I wouldn't say for sure. I'm thinking if it does happen, it would be unsurprising, to be totally honest. I think those are the only properties we could possibly get out of Hollywood that are houses. Now, I think we could end up getting a scare zone that will turn into a house ourselves, but I'll talk about that in a second. Now, let's talk about some speculation right now. So, when Jack was supposed to come back, it was supposed to be in a new show. Now, here's the thing. When you have Universal Studios Florida, you have a couple options. You have Fear Factor Live is out, because that's where Bill and Ted's going to be. And I think Beetlejuice is out because hopefully, with any luck, Rocky Horror returns. Now, you have 2 options left. One of which would be Terminator, which I think Terminator would work, but if you want more of a intimate experience that would bring in a lot more people, I say you bring Jack the Clown to do a reality-style talk show of sorts, or maybe a game show. A game show. A game show is a great idea. I think they've already done it before, but I think they can make it better this time. Like a reality game show, and they do it at Animal Actors. Why? Because if you use Terminator, there's a possibility you'll run into characters or a street experience or a scare zone, because obviously it's right there. But if you use Animal Actors, it's on the way to the parade building and one of the sprung tents. So you allow for there not to be clusters everywhere like there were last year. Now, So that's what I'm thinking. I think Jack returns at Animal Actors this year, and that's exactly what I would do. And if you want to use Terminator, like I said, I really think it'd be a great idea to bring Chris Angel here. Honestly, I think it'd work really well. The problem is I don't know if the venue's big enough. I don't think it would be. But it's purely speculation, just an idea that Owen has, like, marinating in my head. So, another thing we're talking about are video game properties. Now, the big news is a big rumor that a Resident Evil sequel house is returning. So, because I liked Resident Evil, I'm not gonna lie. Escape from Raccoon City was a fun house. It was a fun house. It wasn't a scary house. That was the point. I think this one is going to be a little bit more scarier than the previous house. I think they probably would theme it towards the upcoming Resident Evil movie that is coming out in 2014. Let me check the release date on that to see if it lines up with Halloween Horror Nights. I think it probably does. But as I check that, 2014 movie. There we go. Alright, good times. It is slated to come out on... Thank you, IMDb. It is scheduled to come out on September 12th, so talk about perfect timing for Resident Evil 6, whatever they end up calling it, is going to be a house at Halloween Horror Nights this year. That's what I'm thinking they'll probably do. Now, they're also talking about video game properties. And the first thing that comes to mind is something that I really would like to see at Halloween Horror Nights, but I don't know if they can get the rights to it. The idea I have for a Halloween Horror Nights game maze would be Doom. I think Doom would work really well. I think another option would be Bioshock. Fatal Frame would work really well. It's kind of like Dead Exposure somewhat, but not quite. Left 4 Dead works just the same as well. So those are ideas I have for video game properties they could easily bring into Halloween Horror Nights this year. Or in the years to come. Now, other things I want to talk about. I want to talk about a couple of ideas I've had for a long time. Now, there are 2 masters of horror that are sadly not used at Halloween Horror Nights and haven't been throughout the years. The names are Alfred Hitchcock and Stephen King. With Carrie coming out last year, I think it would have worked really well to do a Hitchcock Greatest Hits house, but you can't do it. You apparently couldn't do it last year. I think it's time to try to ring that bell again and bring Alfred Hitchcock to Halloween Horror Nights. Now, we already had the Psycho, the Fountain Show, the Cinematic Spectacular, the way they use the fountains. They had that, the Psycho show. That worked really well. And we've had Norman Bates in Halloween Horror Nights before, so we could do that. We could also use The Birds and Vertigo and Rear Window, Dial In for Murder, Strangers on a Train. There's a lot of really awesome ones you could definitely throw in an Alfred Hitchcock house. Another icon that needs to be brought into Halloween Horror Nights is Stephen King. And I'm aware that it's probably been tried before, and that's the reason why it's not happened yet. But I would say, I don't know, I was talking about Carrie, obviously, with Stephen King, and I completely flipped that around. Sorry about that. I'm not trying to say that really strangely. I apologize. Carrie would have been a great idea to bring in Stephen King, and didn't happen, so obviously this is an opportunity to bring in Stephen King. You do a Stephen King Greatest Hits house, an Alfred Hitchcock Greatest Hits house, and you bring in 2 of the greatest horror iconic directors in history and use them for houses at Halloween Horror Nights. It's a perfect fit. There you go, I covered my bases now. Now, here's some more ideas. So, there's a couple ideas I've been having, and I think that we're going to get The Conjuring this year. I think The Conjuring was a huge, colossal hit, and I think it works really well. It might be a little bit like Dead End, though, and Conjuring and Insidious in the same year. I don't know if that's going to work really well. But I think The Conjuring is a great idea. I wanted Mama last year, didn't really work out. I wanted Sinister last year, didn't really work out. Maybe Sinister this year, possibly. Who knows? So, also, another thing I want to see is The Purge. Now, what you're saying, oh, and The Purge was in Hollywood. Yeah, The Purge was a scare zone in Hollywood. I want it as a house here. And I think it worked really well. Now, for more speculation, let's talk about location. Location, that's what it's all about, right? So, let's talk about what I think is going to happen. So, judging by every soundstage that was used last year, I'm going to say they're all the same locations. I say we use the parade building, the 2 sprung tents, the disaster queue. Soundstage 21 will have 2, Soundstage 22 has 1, Soundstage 24 has 1. Now, 19, 20, and 23 are available, but I don't know if they're going to have a production in them by then. I know TNA right now wanted to come back to Universal, but they are booked throughout 2014. So I'm thinking some of this may have something to do with Halloween Horror Nights. So I would say 19, 20, and 23 are probably potentially usable as well. Now, what I'm thinking right now, and this is just speculation in January, mind you, I'm going to say the parade building gets American Horror Story. I think American Horror Story fits in the parade building. I think it's a big space, it works really well, and I think you could have a nice little outdoor type maze, and I think it works. I think it fits. The sprung tents, I would put my Urban Legend house, which is the Boogeyman, and my other sprung tent would be the original house, whatever it may be. And who knows, it may be themed this time to Legendary Truth. I know that's what everybody was saying last time with the prison house before Afterlife was announced, but I think that may be a possibility. Another thing you could put in here would be Black Sabbath 13 if we end up getting it, to be honest, because that's where the 3D house usually goes, in between Penn and Teller and, obviously, Afterlife. So, makes sense, right? I think the disaster queue is the place for Dead Space. I think Dead Space is going to be a house this year, and I think it works really well, and I think the confinement works really well for the storyline of the video game. I think if Soundstage 22 ends up getting the list I have, I think Soundstage 22 is the home of The Conjuring. I think it needs a soundstage to be effective, and I think it'll work really well. If The Walking Dead does return, I say it's going to go in Soundstage 21 with Insidious. So I think Insidious and The Walking Dead will share a soundstage. And finally, I think they put this new Resident Evil house in Soundstage 24. So that's like I said, that's speculation in January. So I don't know anything more than that. And I am just like, I'm completely just guesstimating what I'm thinking right now, what's going to happen with any of this. So who knows what's going to happen. Excuse me. Now, obviously, Legendary Truth, the game, will return because it was oh so successful. I think if I had to do something with it, if I had to change anything about it, I'd have, you know where they do the AP event, the annual pass holder nights? You know how you have the Legendary Truth like marker in the front of the park? I think there needs to be one in the back of the park for the annual pass holders to be able to scan before they start the houses. So, because that's kind of unfair if you're an annual pass holder, it doesn't go through the opening ceremony through the gate or what it might be this year. You're kind of out of luck when it comes to those 3 houses you're allowed to hit. So you pretty much can't start getting anything until probably after Bill and Ted, because that's when you're headed back towards the front of the park. Now, I think that would eliminate the problem with that. I think there needs to be a little bit more work done to the actual devices themselves. I had a lot of issues with them last year not registering. I don't know if they're going to be more in-park or more games online. I think that'll both continue, honestly. And I think that I see the opening ceremony returning, and if Jack's involved, I think that may be a good possibility. I would say right now, I don't know anything about the scare zones. I don't know anything about that. I say the Chainsaw Drill team returns. And I think that there's something original I didn't mention. I don't know exactly what it is yet. So, like I said, I'm interesting about getting information January 5th from Mike Aiello. So, kudos to you, good sir, for making us think this early. Oh my God, it's January. We're talking Halloween Horror Nights. We've got until September 19th, supposedly, for the first night of the event, so which I will be gladly in attendance for, opening weekend. I will be at Halloween Horror Nights if the dates line up 6 times this year, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So let's also talk about some speculation, and let's talk about, I like to call it wishful thinking. I talked about Hitchcock, I talked about Stephen King. Now, obviously some wishful thinking I've every year. It's something Mike Aiello wants to do, and it's something I think that'll finally come to fruition very soon. If it's not this year, it'll be in the next 3 years, and that's Halloween. I think there will be a Halloween maze in Orlando within the next 3 years. Mark my words, it will happen. And whatever they don't grab this year, it's still a possibility for next year. And there's always trick or treat, which seems to be a popular idea as well. But with the way that they're talking, which is the way John Murdy's talking on Twitter, it sounds like trick or treat may be coming to Hollywood this year. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's possible. So there's also potential of a return of something from the past. And I heard that the Nightingales may be returning. That's speculation I've been hearing since last year, actually. So, with the way Havoc Derailed worked, I think that there's going to be some money to be made with bringing in some more previous shows and attractions and houses down the road. I think it could happen. Now, let's talk Diagon Alley real quick before we get started. I'm going to say Diagon Alley will be open for the event. Will there be any characters in Diagon Alley? No, I think they'll treat it like Seuss Landing at IOA. Do I think that they will close off the Hogwarts Express? Potentially, but it kind of just throws it off. Like, you have the gimmick of going from park to park, and it makes no sense for them to stay in one park. So, could 2014 be the return of 2 parks for Halloween Horror Nights? Maybe. It's always a possibility, but obviously, we don't know anything, and we won't know anything until a little bit more concrete information has been released. And once that concrete information is released, as I stare up in the screen, and you know you love that so much, I will gladly bring you more videos to talk about that speculation, and about those concrete events, and about those maze and house reveals, and about the scare zones and the street experiences and the potential icon. Once that information is dropped, Suro and Disney will be here talking all about it. So, this is my first Halloween Horror Nights video of 2014. This is the first of many, many Halloween Horror Nights videos as I return to the event this year in September. And I will have my Rush of Fear pass, and I will most likely do an Unmasking the Horror tour, and I will have my dad and my stepmom in tow with me at least one night of the event. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that. So, Halloween Horror Nights speculation to be continued. If you like these videos, tell your friends about them, leave a comment, do subscribe, and help spread the word about Pop. If you want to, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Suro and Disney. If you want to like the Facebook fan page, it's Suro and Disney Pop. If you want to be my friend on Facebook, go right ahead. It's Owen Disney. And finally, you want to send your thoughts, comments, queries, and opinions, you're more than welcome to suroanddisney@gmail.com. So, Horror Nights updaters out there, and you know who you are, all my awesome friends I met last year at Halloween Horror Nights, and some of you that I did not get to meet last year. I'll see you in September, and everyone else, that's all I got to say about that.